I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
All my passionate plant people and garden enthusiasts, welcome to the Let's Get Growing Show, the Sunday edition of the Let's Get Growing Show here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch, I'm your host today, and we've got a great show ahead for you today. We missed him last month, but we've got him back here on the show this month. We've got Gardener Scott back with us for Ask Gardener Scott. All of your gardening questions answered. So Gardener Scott will be here with us in just a little bit later on in the show to answer all of your gardening questions. So make sure you get those questions ready and get those into the chat when we get Gardener Scott on a little bit later. I'm looking forward to seeing all the questions that you bring for Gardener Scott today. It ought to be a really great show. It's always great when we got Gardener Scott on to talk all about gardening. And we'll do a little bit of catching up too. Like I said, he wasn't on this last month, so we'll have a little bit of catching up to do with him for sure. And right here at the top of the show, if you can, definitely click that like button, hit the thumbs up, as well as subscribe. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell notification to be notified of all of our upcoming videos and live streams. And definitely share with all of your friends. Let them know about the Let's Get Growing show. Let them know that we've got Gardener Scott here every second Sunday of the month, and all sorts of other great guests for both our Saturday and Sunday show. We're here both Saturday and Sundays, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And that's 7 p.m. in the evening for all of you over there in the UK as well. Let's have a big, huge shout out to all of you who are watching on the replay. Thank you so much for taking your time to come check out our show, check out what we've got growing on here in the discussion with Gardener Scott here in just a little bit as well. Definitely get into the chat or into the comments actually, and let us know you were here. Let us know what you got growing on. Let me know all about your garden. How did things grow this year? You know, how did your garden do? How did it fare? Let me know down in the comment section below. And even if you just want to drop by and say hi, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. So definitely do that. Thank you so much. And if you are here joining with us live, definitely get into the chat, get into the chat there, and let us know you're here. Let us know what you got growing on. And like I said, definitely get those questions ready for Gardener Scott just a little bit later on. And if you do have any questions, for sure, definitely try to put those into big, bold capital letters so that I can tell the questions from the conversation, and appreciate all of your questions. And I know Gardener Scott does as well too. And links down in the description below. Go check out the link to Gardener Scott's channel. If you haven't had a chance to check out his channel, go and subscribe. I can't believe it if you haven't already. I mean, I think we all subscribe and talk to and check out Gardener Scott and everything that he's got going on. But if you haven't, definitely go and click that link and go support his channel as well too. So right on, everybody. Also too, I mentioned yesterday, and we kind of started the show and I showed you the plants as we started our Saturday show. I do have my Prax cherry tomatoes here that I'll be saving seeds from here over the next couple of weeks. And if you'd like to get some free seeds, some free Prax cherry tomato seeds, these tomatoes are a variety that was developed by an old school gardener, Ray Browning from Praxis 55712. He's since retired his channel, and so I continue to grow these amazing tomatoes that I got seeds from many years ago, and share with all of you as well too. So if you want to get some of these free Prax cherry tomato seeds, definitely send me an email at theurbangardener@mail.com. That's not Gmail, it's just regular old mail.com. Theurbangardener@mail.com. Send me an email and let me know that you'd like to get some of these free seeds for your garden next season. They're really great. They're really delicious. Just a nice big fat cherry tomato. They're so good. you'll definitely want to get some of those growing in your garden next season as well too. So definitely send me an email, and I'll let you know how you can get a hold of some of these free seeds for your garden. Right on, everybody. Thanks for being here today. It's really great to have you all here. Like I said, we got a great show with Gardener Scott coming up here in just a little bit. Let's jump in and say hello to all of you here in the chat with us. And of course, right at the top of the show, we want to say hello to our good friend Jay Dixon, our facilitator of the show, joining us from Midwestern Ontario, Canada. And definitely keep an eye out there as Jay shares with us many great links and information throughout the shows. We're talking about things. And also, too, if you have a channel and you like a shout out, let us know about your channel, and Jay will get us a link into the chat as well, so that we can all go show you some support with what you're growing on as well in your gardens. So definitely do that. Let us know you got some channels out there if you do. And let's see here. We've got who else do we got in here? Of course, we got to say hi to our other moderator and friend, Adam Burley, joining us, my good friend from right up the road here in Central Point, Oregon, Southern Oregon here. And great to see you, Adam. Thanks for being here. See, we got Big Will Dog in the chat as well, too. Right on, right on. Great to see you. And Janet. Awesome. Great to see you. Hello. Great to see you. And yesterday's guest, we had Farmer Marshall, Urban Gardener, on with us for our Are You Following Me segment yesterday. Great to see you back in the chat with us today. Right on. And Eddie, thank you so much for being here, saying hi from Alabama. Right on. Great to have you, Eddie. Thank you for being here on the show. Great to have you in our chat. Let's see here. Oh, nice to see the Fresh Princess. Hi, Natalie. How you doing? Happy Sunday to you as well. And our good friend Serena Norrell joining with us as well. Right on. All right, look at that. We got a lot of great folks here joining with us here on the show today. It's really awesome to see all of you. Texas Organic TV. Hello, hello. Great to see you here with us today. And awesome to have all of you here with us today. So thanks for jumping into the chat there. And again, like I said, get those questions ready for Gardener Scott coming up here in just a little bit. I expect to see some really great questions from all of you today. And let's see here. Serena asks, are the Prax cherry tomato seeds determinate or indeterminate? Well, here's the thing. They're actually an indeterminate variety of tomato, but they really don't grow big and crazy. They are more of a compact size, as you would think of with a determinate that would just grow and then produce all of its tomatoes. But it's more of an indeterminate, but grows pretty compact. I mean, most of my plants don't get much more than about 4 feet tall if we're growing them straight up, but they produce a ton of really great tomatoes. So they kind of act like a determinate in a way. Oh no, of course. Here we go. Already dealing with something with the cameras there. Let's see here. Let's back that up. All right. Oh boy, let's see here. And so definitely, like I said, they're more of like a indeterminate, but act like a determinate. And again, come and get some of those free seeds practice at the urbangardenermail.com. And I'll give you some information on how you can get some. Oh boy, that threw me off. I wasn't expecting to have a camera issue already, but no, we'll see what happens. All right, everybody. Really great to have you all here today. And you know, it's Sunday, so that means that we've got In the Garden, and it's also the second Sunday, so that means we've got our good friend, Mr. MBC. So let's jump right in and see what he's got growing on in the garden today.
Hey guys, it's Mark Boucher Colbert, MBC, and you're in the garden with MBC. I'm here at Franciscan Montessori Earth School in Portland, Oregon, where I am the garden specialist. And behind me is one of the amazing features of our school. It's called Mount Compost. Now, this is a large pile that we've just more or less finished shaping today. It's about 6 feet tall. It's about 12 feet long and it's about 6 feet wide right now. So that's a lot of compost. That's a big pile of compost. As you can see, there's a lot of rough material in there. You can still see all kinds of brush. You can see leaves. If you look closely, there's grass clippings, there's parts of shrubs, there's blackberry vines. There's all kinds of stuff that we've been gathering together over the summer. This doesn't even represent our leaf collection yet. That's yet to start. We haven't even begun raking leaves, and we're gonna make a separate compost pile just of the leaves. So that's a whole other business. But we love to compost here. Composting is actually what got me into my garden journey. I first discovered compost when I was living in New Hampshire. A friend of mine introduced me to it. He had a compost pile. I became fascinated with it. I started collecting leaves from our neighborhood in that fall, making my own compost. And after I had so much fun making compost and discovering this amazing power of the earth to recycle nutrients and create this beautiful humus, this wonderful, rich, dark smelling material that helps plants grow so well. Once I discovered that, I was like, well, I guess I gotta be a gardener now, right? I guess I gotta start planting something because I've generated all this compost. So compost really did lead me into my garden journey. Now, compost can be very informal. You can just really heap things up in a pile. Slowly over time, things will break down. This is the way of nature. But there's a lot we can do to facilitate it. There's a lot we can do to speed the process and make higher quality compost as a result. So today we're going to just talk about the sheer physicality of this pile. Just like what's up with this pile in terms of composing it. We have more to talk about with compost. We have to talk about chemistry. We have to talk about moisture, all that kind of stuff. But today we're just going to talk about the size of the pile and the size of the pieces. And I'm going to relate those both using a couple of blocks and some concepts, some basic geometrical concepts. So you're going to get a little math here, but hopefully it's going to help make sense of this pile and why I want two things: a big pile, but made up of small pieces. So that's been our mantra here in the last couple of weeks as we've been making this pile. Big pile, small pieces. Let's get into it. Here's why. The two geometrical concepts that I will illustrate with this cube are volume and surface area. Let's talk about those two things and how they might relate to each other in a compost pile. So the volume of an object is merely the amount of space it takes up, right? This happens to be very convenient. It takes up 1 cubic unit of space, right? It's 1 cube. So we could say that this is 1 cubic unit. The compost pile takes up space. You and I take up space. Anything that exists in space takes up space. So everything's going to have a volume. Sometimes it's very easy to calculate. Like this cube is easy to calculate. It's 1 cubic unit, whatever that edge would be. But something like our hand or my finger, that's harder, right? Irregular shape. Something like a compost pile, irregular shape. Take it easy. We don't have to calculate it. All we need to do is understand the concept of volume, the amount of space something takes up. Now let's look at surface area. Surface area is how much of that shape or space contacts the outside world. So again, here with this cube, it's a very ideal shape, right? It's very easy to see where this shape has contact with the outside world. It actually has 6 square faces where it literally interfaces with the outside world. So surface area is merely the outside or exterior. For us, it's our skin, right? We have surface, our volume comes into contact with the world here on our surface, and our surface area happens to be our biggest organ, which is our skin. Easy enough, right? Compost pile as well is going to have the whole, whatever is contacting the external environment, that's its surface area. Not very easy to calculate that, but we don't have to. All we have to do is understand the concept that there is a surface, an exterior to the pile, and that's in contact with the environment. How does this play into composting though? Well, first of all, we have to mention that this is intended to be a hot compost pile. A hot compost pile relies on certain kinds of bacteria that thrive in high temperature environments and that do a very efficient job at breaking down organic material quickly. So what do I mean by high temperature? Could be as high as like 160 degrees Fahrenheit. definitely we want to be in that 120 to 160 range to get the one maximum rate of decomposition, the fastest breakdown. Because yeah, like I said, you can throw a pile of leaves in your backyard and it might take years to break down. It eventually will, but we want fast cycling through. We want to be able to use this stuff for the garden as quickly as we can, right? Because this is going to take the place in many regards of other kinds of fertilizer. So we're recycling nutrients here, and we don't want to wait for 3 years. Maybe we'd like to have it in 3 months if we could. That's more convenient. So anyway, we're trying to cycle these nutrients quickly. We're going to use a hot compost approach. That's an aerobic approach, an air-based approach. And what that's also going to do is kill pathogens and potentially sterilize weed seeds in the compost pile. So those hot temperatures are going to be really favorable to create very healthy compost that's not going to spread seeds that we picked up from somewhere. If a plant, a weedy plant had a lot of seeds on it and we put it in the compost pile, we're not going to be multiplying that plant somewhere else. It'll do a good job of neutralizing that, and then any other harmful organisms will be neutralized by that heat. So all good. We're looking for a hot pile. We want to keep that pile as hot as possible, and we're going to do it in 2 ways. We're going to build a big pile with small pieces, and that's where we need this concept of surface area to volume. So let's say we have 2 amounts of compost materials. If we leave them separate, we can see that each of these volumes, like for this shape, we have 6 surface areas, right? 6 squares. I can count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, easy, right? We can easily see that there's 6 surface areas and 1 volume of, let's just say this is our compost pile. So this 1 volume and 6 surface areas. Here we have an identical block, so we'll call this another compost pile. It has the same amount, another volume of compost and 6 surface areas. If they're separate, we have 2 volumes of compost and 12 surface areas. Those surface areas are where the pile can lose heat. It's in contact with the environment, so it can cool off anywhere along these sides. Top, definitely heat will rise, so there'll be a lot going out the top. And as the ground cools off, we'll be losing heat from the bottom as well. So all these surfaces, the surface area is where heat will dissipate from this pile. Now, what happens when we bring 2 piles together? We would have 6 surfaces on each, 12 surfaces normally, 2 units of compost, but let's bring them together into 1 bigger pile. And now all of a sudden we still have 2 units of compost, but we've lost 2 surfaces. Did you see how we lost 2 surfaces? And indeed there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 surfaces now instead of 12. So we've lost 2 surfaces. Now there's more inside to the pile. There's less area for it to radiate heat from, and thus the pile can stay warmer. As we bring more and more units of compost, whatever those are for us, any little piles that we can have bring together, we're reducing surfaces that radiate heat out, creating more interior space in the compost pile, and thus allowing it to stay warmer for longer under cooler conditions. Now, of course, you'd say maybe we insulate the pile, maybe we put a tarp over it. Yeah, there's things we can do to help keep the heat in. But one of the biggest things we could do is just make the pile big. The bigger, the better. So big piles are good because they have less surface area for the amount of volume, right? Every time we bring units of compost together, we sort of close off some of those surfaces and add more heat and interiority to the pile, less place for heat to dissipate. So that's the first thing. A big pile, as big as you can make it. That's a big pile. We call it Mount Compost. Anyway, but here's the corollary to that, or the counterpoint is, you want the pieces inside to be small. Why do we want the pieces inside to be small? Well, what drives compost? It's primarily bacteria, right? It's primarily bacteria, some fungi later on, and other organisms, but mainly bacteria, especially these high temperature, what we call thermophilic, the high temperature loving bacteria that will really move in and spike that heat in that pile. And what they're doing is they're feasting, right? I mean, they are consuming some of the nutrients that are in the compost and leaving behind kind of a stable carbonaceous form from what they've eaten. So if we take materials like a stick, for example, or a leaf, a branch and some leaves, it's to our advantage to break those up into small pieces. And why is that? Well, for the same or similar reasons, similar reasoning at least. Let's go back to our abstract forms here. Let's call this the stick. The stick has a volume, right? It takes up space, and it has surfaces, surface area. And now, instead of being worried about heat and heat loss, what we're worried about is maximizing the amount of surfaces where the bacteria can feast on, because that's where things are happening. This is where the chemical and biological activity of a compost pile is happening. It's happening on the surfaces of all the materials that are in there. So let's break that stick now. Oh, we've just broken it. Look, we've exposed more surfaces, right? So the more you take a stick and break it into pieces, the more you take a leaf and break it into tiny little bits, shatter it, shred it, right? We're creating all these additional surfaces. So chopping, chipping, cutting, weed whacking, mulching, all these activities that we can do to break down materials are going to create smaller pieces where more bacteria can eat. I tell my kids, it's like if you had 6 guests at your table, let's say we have enough for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people to sit at this table, and you had 2 more people come for Thanksgiving or something, it would be great to have 2 small tables that you could just break apart, and then you've created 2 more seats, right? All of a sudden we can sit 8 now. And the same would go, the bigger the table, the more small pieces you had, you could break them apart and sit more and more. We want to invite as many bacteria to the feast as possible. So we break the table apart, so to speak, where they're going to sit, what they're going to eat, and break it into small pieces. For the same amount of volume, we get a lot more surface area. So you can see with just these 2 simple concepts, volume and surface area, hopefully that wasn't too scary. Hopefully you handle that pretty well. Volume is just the amount of space something takes up. Surface area is how much is exposed to the environment around it. And using those 2 concepts, we can see why it's important for a hot compost pile like this to be as big as possible, because it's going to conserve heat, right? It's going to help keep that interior, that pile cooking away and favoring those really heat-loving bacteria. And then we want to break apart all our particles, all our pieces as much as possible, shredding, chipping, however you want to do it, physically cutting, and create lots of surfaces for the bacteria to feed on. So anyway, I hope you're making compost. I hope you're falling in love with compost like I did, and I still am. And this stuff is going to return such tremendous value to us. It's really worth the effort. You really want to be integrating some compost and compost making into your backyard system, into your home and garden system in whatever way you can. And if you have the luxury of the space and you have the materials you can gather from yourself or your friends or whoever you want, make it as big as possible. Your pile will hold on to a lot more heat. If you have the ability to shred things, chip things, break things up, make the pieces as small as possible. The bacteria will gather around, have a huge feast, and you will have compost a lot faster. It'll be clean, healthy, beautiful stuff. Your plants will thrive. Enjoy fall in your garden. I'll see you next time on In the Garden with MBC. Take care.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants, and author, Saving the World with the Home Garden. Ivory Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
All right, all right, all right. Back again. Here we are. Thanks to Mark for what a great lesson there on compost. A lot of a lot to take in for sure, but a really great understanding of about all that surface area and how our compost piles work. And real quick, I want to say hi to Tony joining with us here today. Thanks, Tony, for jumping in. And I also saw that we have the gardening channel with Hot Potato, and he was asking about what the appropriate amount of biochar to compost to do. And for my recommendation on that, because I don't know necessarily the answer, but definitely come and check us out next Sunday as we'll be interviewing Kelpie Wilson for her book on our book club, the Biochar Handbook. So that's something to look forward to as well. And if you didn't get a chance to check out our show yesterday we had on with us Philip Longo from Earth, Nails, and Tails. We had a really great discussion with him. And as well, we got to meet Farmer Marshall. And see, he's in the chat as well today. So definitely go back and check that show out from yesterday. And if you didn't get a chance also to check out last week's shows too, we had Greg Peterson from the Urban Farm podcast on with us last Saturday, as well as we got to meet Diva in the Dirt. Really great conversations with them. Always great to see Greg on the show as well. On our Sunday edition, we had with us, joining back again, Rish Gala and Ashley Thomas with a nice fun garden roundtable asking, is your garden happy? So definitely go back and check out those shows as well too from last week. So all right, everybody, we've been waiting a while now. He's been we missed him last month, so we'll have him back. We'll do a little catch up here. It's time for Ask Gardener Scott. All right, here he is. Oh, let's see. Can we get him on there? I don't know what's going on. Oh, these things, I'm telling you, what do we got here? I'll have to do this. I think StreamYard really changed some things up, and they really got my buttons different right now.
Yeah, they did. I've been having some similar issues.
Yeah, usually when you join someone in, it goes right into whatever the next frame is for two. But I actually have to now go back and hit that, and every time that happens, throws me off just a little bit. But great to have you back, Scott. Great to see you. Thanks
Good
for
to
being.
see you, ain't it? It has been a couple months.
Yeah. You had a good time last month with your granddaughter's birthday, right?
Yeah, it was good. They did it at a rock climbing wall.
Oh, really?
Location. So like a big warehouse with a bunch of walls, and
yeah,
it was interesting.
Did you get yourself up there on any of those?
No, it was just for the kids.
I'd be thinking twice about it myself, even.
Yeah. But it was a fun day. It was, sorry I missed you, but priorities. Not that you're not a priority.
That's right. Yeah, the grandkids take. Yeah. My granddaughter's birthday this year landed right on a show day too, and I was just like, you know what? Priorities, just like you said. So yeah, definitely worth the wait to have you there as well too. So great. How things been growing? How's the garden doing? I mean, we're getting right into fall. It's got to be cooling down there in Colorado, right?
Well, it sort of, yeah. I got a really late start because of my UK travels this year, and so I was hoping that I would get a good tomato pepper harvest, but we're already full week, almost 2 weeks after the normal average first frost date, and I still haven't had a frost. So I'm still harvesting tomatoes, still harvesting peppers, still enjoying what I'm growing. It might change on Sunday. We'll see. Sunday looks like it might be the first frost, but it's been a while since I've been able to do active gardening in the middle of October.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, too, a really cool makeup, because I know you had a little bit of it stayed a bit cool into the prior or into the spring season, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of great that it's extending out just a little bit extra for you this year.
Yeah, it's good. And today is a beautiful day. I was out right before signing in with you, and I'll go out again. I'm working on a project right now, a simple project. I completed my walled garden area. So the walls are done. um, except for one mild section, so I get my wheelbarrow back and forth. But I'm working now on a blackberry bed, and so I'm using cinder blocks, but thin cinder blocks, to line the area where the blackberries are going to be. And so it's right next to my raspberry patch. Next year, I'll be growing a lot more blackberries.
Right on. Yeah, to me, I always find it kind of interesting as folks, in different climates and different areas, they make special beds or grow blackberries specifically, whereas I'm in the still, pretty much the Pacific Northwest, even here in Southern Oregon, and blackberries grow like weeds for us everywhere. So we just, we go find some train tracks somewhere, take a bucket with
right.
us or something, and go and collect tons of blackberries, which I still got to do. I haven't done that in the last couple of years, but I need to try that out, do that again. But yeah, so is there so when it comes to growing blackberries, you're putting them in, is there any special varieties or anything like that? Or where are you finding and getting these brambles from?
Yeah, so a number of different sources. Norse Farms, I've been liking the last couple of years. So I'm going to check and see if they've got some blackberries. I'm not sure if they do. I've gotten them from Stark Brothers in the past. And Fedco, I think, is another company I like that might have some blackberries that I'll look into. But there's basically two different types. There's the types that have the thorns, and there's the thornless. And the varieties that tend to do pretty well in my area of Colorado are the blackberries that actually do well in this part of the U.S. So they typically have Native American names. So they'll be like Arapaho or Navajo. Those tend to be thornless blackberries, and for me, at least in my area, I've grown them before, and they do quite well.
All right, excellent. Yeah. For, like I said, for me, I just take whatever's growing out there and all of that. But I'm sure for folks who do get the opportunity to be able to grow them in your garden and in other climates, those are probably really great varieties.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here real quick. Hot Potato was in there asking, how did you enjoy eating your prickly pear jelly, Scott? He said, wonderful video. He said, we made a sorbet from wild prickly pear recently.
It's great. In fact, yesterday I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with my prickly pear jelly, and it's really good. I've tried spreading it on crackers, putting it on some cream cheese, and it's just really delicious. I started making a vinaigrette with it the other day and didn't follow through, so that's the next thing I'll be doing, is making a vinaigrette with the prickly pear jelly. But
yeah,
it's delicious. I've been propagating. I haven't done the propagation video yet, so I'll do that next year. But I've been taking the prickly pear cactus that I find growing in different areas and digging it up, and then making basically a garden bed of nothing but this type of cacti. And so this year I harvested almost 10 pounds of the prickly pear, the fruit of the cactus. And that's what they're referring to. Is I made a video about that a little over a week ago, making the jelly with the prickly pears. And it's absolutely delicious. What I'm going to do next, so when I make my jellies, I will save the pulp, and then I will either dehydrate or freeze dry the pulp. And what I did with the prickly pear pulp is I froze it in the freeze dryer tray, and then either this afternoon or tomorrow, I'm not sure yet, I'll put it with other fruits in my freeze dryer. But for that pulp in particular, I'm going to turn it into a prickly pear powder. And so if you're not aware of fruit powders, it's the kind of thing that, you have ice cream and you can sprinkle the powder on the ice cream. Or if you want to make a milkshake or a smoothie, you've got the powder and you just take a couple teaspoons or tablespoons and put it in with the milk or the ice cream. And it's a great way to flavor desserts with just a powder. So that's the next thing I'm going to experiment with the prickly pear.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. And I haven't heard of a fruit powder before. pepper powders, taking
Yeah.
hot peppers and powdering those down, so that you can kind of adjust heat levels if you want out of some of those really hot peppers and everything. Is it kind of a similar thing or similar
Yeah,
process you're looking to do?
absolutely. I've made videos about making garlic powder and about making the pepper powder. A couple years ago, I made tomato powder, and the tomato
Mm,
powder is just incredible. And so that's what got me thinking about fruit powder. And you're right,
yeah.
I haven't seen much on it either. I think once I started thinking about it, I came across like one video that mentioned the fruit powder. I haven't looked into it that much, but it's just an easy way to flavor. There you go. Yeah, the tomato powder is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And so the idea of doing the same, because tomatoes are a fruit,
Yeah.
peppers are a fruit. So why not make the powder from something like prickly pear?
Wow, yeah, I'm surprised. I've never even heard of tomato powder before either, and already a couple of folks here
Yeah.
already saying they have as well. Have with these sort of powders though, is this like you retain the? Of course, you've tried the tomato ones and stuff. Does it really to retain individual tomato flavors and those
Yeah.
sort of things?
And that's why I
And
prefer the freeze drying. Dehydrating works extremely well, but depending on the fruit, the dehydrator, because of the heat, does change the flavor a little bit from the things that I've dehydrated. But the freeze dryer really retains the flavor exactly. There really is no difference in the freeze dryer. And so I've made tomato powder using the dehydrator, and I've made the tomato powder using the freeze dryer. And to me, at least, the freeze dried powder has much more flavor.
yeah, it must really like hold on, or I don't know, break down those sugars. So is it like retaining a lot of the sugar, so you're getting really good sweetness out of it?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah.
It's more that uh, it doesn't oxidize. Sometimes with the dehydrator, you're doing it at like 135 or 140 degrees. That essentially is like a low bake. And anytime we bake
Mm,
anything in the oven, we're going to change the flavor. So it deepens the flavor when you dehydrate, I think, and
yeah.
that's not a bad thing. I mean, it really does. It's why we roast tomatoes. It's why we make cooked tomato
Yeah.
sauces. That deeper flavor is tasty.
Yeah.
But to get that fresh flavor, the freeze dryer, using the freezing and then
Yeah.
the vacuum to draw out the water, that helps to retain the flavor, I think, much more.
Wow. Right on. Yeah. And you're also mentioning of course, the prickly pear jelly as we got started there with. I got to make my first jam I've really ever made
Yes.
out of the figs. So I made one of my first fig jams, and what really cool is that it just doesn't require. It's not really hard at all.
Yeah.
You don't even really, and I guess you don't even really need like what is it, the pectin that you would put
Right.
into other types of jam, because it has its own natural. And yeah, it turned out really, really great,
Good.
really
Good for
awesome.
you.
So yeah, really, really kind of glad I tried that out for sure. Have
Good.
you done any like fig jams or anything before?
So I'm looking forward to making fig jam. So I've got two figs in Chicago figs in my
Hmm.
greenhouse. And on Friday, for the first time ever, I ate my own figs. No, there were only
Oh,
two of
really?
them, and they're much smaller than the figs that are typically grown in much more warm environments. Um, but it was incredible. It was the two little teeny ones, smaller than a walnut. And so
Yeah.
I have a lot that are on the fig trees right now, more like fig bushes. And if they ripen, I'll have enough to probably make a small batch of figs. So I'm right at that point. My greenhouse is unheated. And so
Yeah.
I just need the weather to cooperate and ripen all those figs. Because no, I've never made a fig trees and or a fig jam. And here in
Yeah.
Colorado, figs, you really don't even see figs in the store much, because it's
Right.
just not something that we are used to. But I would love to be able to answer that question in a month and say, yes, I harvested the figs and was able to make jam.
Yeah, it was really great. Because again, similar though too, is that last year, so it was probably some of my first figs that I got to get out of the garden. But this year, my Chicago fig as well as I let it grow out more, so and I got just lots of really great production off of it. So I ended up with plenty of them, and I was like, what am I going to do with these? Because you get a bunch of them and everything, and they can you got to do something with them kind of quick. They're not going to last very long, so. Someone suggested as I was down at the Fig Fest, you should make some fig jam. And so I came home, made some, and it turned out
Good
really
for
great.
you.
Really awesome, man. I really enjoy it because figs have become one of my favorite, fruits, I guess, that I've been growing around here. Although I've had some pretty good stuff. I mean, we had great peaches, we had great apples. In fact, I'm thinking about making an apple pie out of the apples that I just harvested off of my container trees. So yeah, it ended up being pretty good season for all of that. And so real quick here, for everybody who's watching right now, definitely drop into our comments right here with some questions. This is Ask Gardener Scott, where we're answering all of your gardening questions. Coach Chavi's in the chat here, and he asks, was there any a bed, crop, plant of 2025? Did something surprise you this past season?
Yes, I was pleasantly surprised. So
pleasantly is great. That's the best surprise.
So you have asked me the question before, and I appear on a lot of podcasts and radio shows, and I'm often asked the question of what plant can't I grow, or what plant is difficult for me to grow? And I always answer okra. And I come back to that periodically. Well, this year, my granddaughters planted my garden, so I gave them all my boxes of seeds and let them choose what they wanted. And my granddaughter likes pickled okra, so she saw the package of okra and said, we have to plant okra. So they sowed all the seeds. The okra did better than it's ever done for me in my garden. The plants were beautiful. They were looking great. And then I had a hailstorm, and the hailstorm knocked all the leaves and blemished all of the pods. But I still consider this a very happy surprise because they did so well in my garden this year, better than ever. So it's one of those, we all have them as gardeners. Something causes us to change our impression, our attitude about something. And so my whole opinion on okra has changed. And so next year I'm planning to grow okra again. This time I will be ready. The hail wasn't forecast, so it was kind of a surprise storm, and it only hit my neighborhood. Nobody in town actually had hail, but it was enough to just devastate the plants. I show a little bit of that bed in my most recent video, but that was it. That was the surprise of this season, was that okra, at least in that bed this year, did well, and it was a success.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy too, is that you talk about that hailstorm hitting just your neighborhood. I had the same thing happen, as we all know here on our show, is that it kind of shut us down for a while. In fact, we started seeing some of those first problems a couple months back when we had you on the show, and ended up being just this massive lightning storm, and I got
Don't blame me for it.
It wasn't you, but how is that we had these, and again too, the storm picked us specifically. There's this picture someone took from a couple of neighborhoods back of the storm just coming down and everything coming right down. I'm like, that's my house right underneath of this thing, and lightning must have hit somewhere and totally took out all of our electronics and all that sort of stuff.
That's what caused you to start having those equipment issues. My brother-in-law took a picture. He was in town about 10 miles away, and sent me a picture of the storm over my neighborhood. Everything else was clear, and it was just dumping. I got almost 2 inches of rain in a day during that storm. So it was incredible that it just parked over my house and just destroyed my garden, except for the beds that I had covered with the hailcloth.
Yeah. Had just a little bit of enough time to get some things protected a little bit, huh?
Well, I've got the big area. So I've got an area of my garden. It's 24 feet by 24 feet. And
Mhm.
that's where I do most of my tomato and pepper growing. And I keep that whole area covered. I've got a 25 by 25-foot sheet of hailcloth that is permanently in place during the summer months because of this problem that you just never know when the storm's going to pop up.
Yeah, yeah, or how intense it's gonna be, boy. Let's see here, Hot Potatoes asking, about what brand or type of freeze dryer do you use?
Yeah. So I saw, in fact, I thank you to Serena, I think it was. I think I saw in the comments that she had answered this question because I use Harvest Right, and I'm
Mm,
scrolling up just to see if I can see that it was Serena because I think it was. But on my channel, in all of my videos, my recent videos, I've got a
oh, yeah,
link to
yeah.
Harvest Right because if you use that Gardner Scott code, I think it saves you like $150.
Oh, wow.
And their prices, I mean, it's expensive to have a freeze dryer, but their prices are really dropping. And then if you use that Gardner Scott link, it saves you even more money. So, especially going into the holidays, if you're thinking about getting a Harvest Right freeze dryer, now could be the time. They've got some really good sales going on.
Yeah, definitely check that, and that's, on, a video or where we get that find
Yeah,
that
so
link?
in my video on my live stream, any of my Gardner Scott YouTube stuff in the description,
It'll be in there.
I've got links to different affiliates, and the Harvest Right freeze dryer is one of them.
Right on, right on. I was seeing this actually. We got Tony in the chat with
Yeah, hi
us
Tony.
today, and he was saying he spent the whole day at the plot today and didn't even consider bringing a camera. It was so nice. How about for you? I know we're making videos all the time, working on videos and everything, but
Well, so
you take
I've
some time.
actually
Do you specifically do that where you're just
I
like, you know
took
what?
I took most of this summer. So I
Yeah.
cut way back on my videos. I know exactly what Tony's talking about.
Mhm.
We've kind of talked about this in our comments back and forth.
Mhm.
Um, you know, this time uh, we get into the YouTube. Tony and I have both been doing YouTube for 14 plus years and just making the videos endlessly.
Yep.
And I stepped back a little bit. I know Tony has stepped back a little bit too. So I did one video in June. I didn't do any videos in July. Did one video in August, one in September. I started making them a little more regularly now as we move into October. But yeah, I understand exactly what Tony's talking about because there's so much about my garden that
Mhm.
doesn't get done because I think, oh, I have to take the camera with me. I have to film what I'm doing. I have to turn this into a video. And that
Yeah.
really kind of begins to take away from the fun of gardening a little bit. So yeah, I've gone out to my garden doing a lot this year that I did not film because I wanted to just get the job done and try to enjoy the experience.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely again, I don't know necessarily it gets to a certain part of the season for me and all of that, and then I'm just like, "You know what? I gotta enjoy this instead of trying to spend so much time trying to put together, all the different, video clips and different things that go into making a video 'cause, it could be it extends the workout, right?
Yeah.
Like, we go and we wanna try and get something done, but then I wanna film it as well, and the next thing you know, 1-hour project turns into
Oh,
a
yeah.
4-hour project, right?
Well, I stained, in fact, in my most recent video, you can see it in the background. I
Mm,
stained my fence project, and it takes a long time to stain by hand. And one of the
yeah,
reasons I'm just now finishing that project is because I wanted to film it and to get the camera, to get it set up, to get all of the equipment, to do the staining. That was just so much extra effort that I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off.
mhm,
And then I just told myself, no, you don't have to film every step. Just get out there and work on the project. And if it doesn't get filmed, it doesn't get filmed.
Yeah, yeah. Again, too, I've kind of taken a little more laxed effort this year, especially because of that, and other projects and other things I'm trying to do, and all of that sort of stuff too, kind of take up a bunch of time as well. So it's kind of like, you know what, I gotta pull back from a lot of that just a little bit. You know, it's kind of I set myself up this year as a no expectations garden.
Good.
You know what I mean? And we'll
That's
just
a good way
put
to do
out
it.
a few things, do what I normally do with a couple of mainstay crops that I do. There's a lot I didn't actually plant out this year that I would normally plant out in a normal season, and still ended up though too. And going back to that question there, what was kind of a surprise in 2025? I mean, I think that was kind of my surprise, was that even though I didn't put all this effort into a lot of stuff, I ended up with a bunch of great volunteers, a
Good.
bunch of other things, and stuff I wasn't expecting much out of ended up turning out really great. So in the long run, it kind of worked out, you know, kind of this little hands off and let things kind of do their thing, and ended up with a pretty good season anyways.
Good. Yeah. That helps you. I'll be talking in my live stream tomorrow morning about burnout, garden burnout. And that's one of the things that you can do to recover, is just forget about, you know, in our case, the filming, forget about some of those other peripheral issues, and just stand back and look at things like volunteers, you know, the stuff that makes the gardening fun in the first place. You got to get back to the roots, literally get back to the roots, and enjoy what you're doing in the garden.
Yeah. I was going to say too, one of the things I made a note of too is when it was a little while back ago, and kind of on the same thing, is you did a video on staying motivated in the garden, you know?
Yeah. This is kind of a continuation of that thought, because I made that video kind of at the beginning of the season. And so now I'm doing the live stream tomorrow to kind of talk about, you know, what worked, what didn't work, you know, what got me motivated, what motivation I lost, and then share, of course, with everybody in the chat to see what their thoughts are about staying motivated in the garden. And you know, in that video that you're referencing, the thing that really got me in the garden this year was building that little patch of grass for my dogs, and they're on it every day. I mean, it's one of the best things I've done in my garden in years, was to just put a little bit of grass for my dogs. And now I'll walk out and I'm wondering where they are, and I know exactly where to look, because it's their spot. They figured out it's their spot, and they're happy there. So that just makes the whole thing so much more worthwhile.
Yeah. And see, Coach Chavi is saying that burnout is real. And he says this fall is all chaos gardening. Sprinkle seeds and see what lives. And I know you also did a recent video on chaos gardening, you know,
because I'm with Coach Chavi. That's what I've been doing, is just and I did it, you know, I talked about it in that video, but I've continued to do that. Just try to clean out my seed box and just throw in the seeds, and whatever wants to grow next year gets to grow. I'm not taking a lot of extra effort in very many areas of the garden.
Yeah. So what would you say? Okay. So there's a very familiar other term in a way that's kind of like, and I don't know if maybe you could explain maybe what you would think the differences is, but lazy gardening, right? Chaos gardening, lazy gardening, very similar in a way, you know, any specific differences or anything?
Yeah. I mean, we all have our own individual definitions. So the idea behind chaos gardening is your plan is disorder. So, you know, most of us, when we put flowers in the garden, when we put vegetables in the garden, we have nice rows. Everything is spaced perfectly apart. We know exactly what's going into which beds. And so with chaos gardening, you can do it with vegetables, or you can do it with flowers. My video primarily talked about doing it with flowers. But the idea is that you just put the seeds in, and all of the plants grow together. Now, the diversity of plants within a bed can actually be quite healthy for the soil, for you watching and looking at your bed. And as long as you match up the seeds so that the plants have similar sun needs and similar water needs and similar nutrient needs, you can grow spinach and carrots and broccoli and whatever you want all in the same bed. Now, we're for the most part, I think all of us familiar with the concept of square foot gardening, where you would grow all of those different plants in a bed, but each of them would be confined to a particular square in that grid. So you'd have 1 square feet of spinach and 1 of carrots, and so, you know, very distinct, like a quilt pattern. But the chaos is like, no, instead of breaking everything into a single square foot, just sow all of the seeds in the bed and then let them grow side by side. You still need to thin, you still need to take care of everything, but you'll have the different plants growing side by side with each other. And it kind of makes it exciting. It adds a little bit of uniqueness to that bed. And so then the lazy gardening, depending on how you want to define it, is often best done with a plan. So like for me, lazy gardening includes amending in fall, getting the soil nice and ready to go, choosing the kind of plants that are going to grow well in my area so that I don't have to worry about pests. I don't have to worry about the weather affecting them, and then putting them in the right plant into that right location, and just kind of letting nature go. Letting, if you choose well, depending on your climate, the natural rainfall is enough to support those plants. The sun is enough to support those plants. And so for me this year, I got a lot of daylilies. And that's what I did with my daylilies. So daylilies for me this year is a good example of lazy gardening, where I put the daylilies in and then I just stepped back, and the rain watered them for the most part. Occasionally I had to do some supplemental watering. The sun took care of them. They were in a spot that I didn't need to fertilize. I didn't need to deal with pests. And so now I've got daylilies all over my garden. And really the only work I did was to plant them in the first place.
Yeah. And that's kind of a little bit of what I was practicing myself too, you know, with my kind of no expectations garden this year is, you know, and for me, just a, you know, bit more watering, you know, that's about all I would do. You know, I got a lot of containers and different things and in spaces that, you know, just require me to get out and do some watering. So, you know, I was as much as I really had to do. I've got a lot of course, we're trying with our spaces, utilizing vertical gardening and those sort of things, but, you know, much more than just trying to get them to go up on their own. But for the most part, like I had a bunch of cucumbers in the back and I've got a really great trellis for it. Right. Nice. Well, I got it up on the first rung. And I did that much, and that was about as far as I went. And then all they did was just go right back down to the ground and spread out everywhere. And the whole trellis is sitting there basically with nothing on it. But again, too, that was kind of my bit of form of lazy gardening. It's just going to do whatever it's going to do, and that's fine. I don't want to spend too much time trying to worry about it or train them to do what they need to do in order to climb up that trellis. And I was also going to say too, I saw there's a gardener out there. I saw a clip of, or a reel of about chaos gardening, and he'd get the packages. In fact, he'd get like packages of beans just from the store, and he's just throwing them around. And that's kind of pretty much the same, even like with a raised bed. You're not going to like toss them really crazily, but, you know, just kind of spread them out kind of just loosely. Right.
Yeah. And it actually works pretty well, of course, depending on the seed, but particularly for perennials and for a lot of the leafy vegetables that we grow. If you look at the seed packet, it says, you know, just spread on the surface and press in, or lightly cover. You know, those are the kind of seeds that actually many of them can benefit from exposure to light. They need light to germinate. And so if you just toss them around, you're actually giving them what they're looking for. You just water them in so that they will settle onto the soil. But yeah, that's the epitome of laziness, in addition to a little bit of chaos. It's just toss the seeds and let them fall and see what pops up.
Yeah. And then, like you said, though, too, you don't want everything to be super crowded. So you maybe a little thinning,
Yeah.
Little bit of effort.
Yeah.
Right. Again, everybody, questions. We're here to answer all of your gardening questions with Gardener Scott here today. So definitely drop those questions into the live chat right now, and we'll get Gardener Scott to answer them for you. So let's see some questions coming up here. Serena asked just a little bit ago, between leaf mold, compost, worm castings, charged biochar, Neptune's crab shell plant food, and water soluble fertilizer, which one or combination is best for revitalizing garden beds?
Yeah, so
I would add to this real quick, though. Is this the time to be revitalizing a garden bed?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to touch a little bit. I'm not a big fan of doing like plant food and water soluble fertilizers at this time of year. This time of year, I'm a big fan of doing things like leaf mold and compost and worm castings and biochar, to just really get the bed ready for winter by putting organic matter into it. Biochar isn't organic matter, but it still can improve the texture of the soil. And so this is a good time for that. The issue that I have particularly with plant foods and water soluble fertilizers is that they tend to be high in nitrogen, and nitrogen, you put it in your beds in the fall, it's going to be gone by the time spring approaches. Nitrogen moves through the soil very easily, and between melting snow and rainfall and your normal watering, it's going to leach out of the beds. So I do not recommend putting fertilizers in beds in fall, primarily because it's usually not necessary if you're doing a lot of organic matter, and the nitrogen is just going to be lost. Now, if you're revitalizing a bed because it has a phosphorus deficiency or if it has a potassium deficiency, then you can focus on those nutrients in particular. And I might recommend something like bone meal or green sand as a better way to build your soil than the fertilizers, particularly water soluble fertilizer. It's really not building the soil, it's just feeding the plants. And if you're not growing any plants in November, December, January, February, March, then it really doesn't make much sense to be using a quick release fertilizer like that months before you're going to have the plants in the ground.
Yeah, you mentioned green sand. Can you explain a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, so green sand is actually a product that it's a mineral. It's mineral based, and it helps provide potassium to soils. And so both potassium and phosphorus, when you put them into soil, the soil and it all gets to cation exchange and all kinds of stuff like that. But they lock with the soil. Nitrogen just leaches right out, but the phosphorus and the potassium and some of the other macronutrients will be locked into the soil. And so the form you choose, whether it's a quick release or whether it's a slow release or organic type of amendment, it's personal preference. But when you put it into the ground in fall, that gives time for the microbes that are going to be the ones to release those nutrients and help break down those materials to populate the bed over the course of a number of months. So yeah, green sand is exactly what it sounds like. It's a sand. I don't think it is that green, but it is a little bit slightly colored. I want to say it's mined. It's someplace like New Jersey or Pennsylvania or something like that.
Oh, really?
But yeah, it adds potassium as an organic method. It isn't technically organic, but it all falls within the organic method of gardening without using synthetic chemicals.
Excellent. And so kind of mentioning and talking about, again, with the idea of revitalizing, but also, as we're going into winter, and that was one of the things I was going to ask about. Is there something, as again, moving through fall, winter's going to be here before we know it. Are there any sort of things that we need to be thinking about, getting our gardens prepared or ready for winter?
Yeah, I like getting things done in fall, just because that means I don't have to do it in spring. because by the time spring comes, with my crazy weather, it's winter, and then suddenly it's summer, and I need to be ready to go because spring often doesn't even show up in my part of Colorado. And so it's cleaning up the beds, it's repairing the beds, it's amending the beds, it's mulching the beds. It's basically doing all of that prep work so that when it comes time to plant, all I have to do is just put the seed in the ground or put the plant in the ground, because everything else has been done. That's my preferred method. I don't always do that with all of my beds, but that's my preferred approach to what I like to do in fall moving into the winter. And then the rest of the, kind of back to that lazy gardening idea, I leave most of my flowers and grasses up throughout the winter because it provides seeds for the birds. It provides, in my front yard, I've been experimenting. My soil is just so bad, especially in my front yard. So I let some of the weeds grow. I let all the other plants I put in place grow. And over the course of the fall, those plants actually collect the blowing leaves. So when the leaves fall from my neighbor's trees and they blow into my yard, all of those plants that I leave up are collecting the leaves. And so then the leaves kind of form a protective barrier, a mulch of leaves throughout the winter. And the work is done for me. And then in the spring, I'll just run a mower over that area so that those leaves are crushed up and fall to the ground. And it's a lazy way of amending the soil in large areas by just letting the plants live until they go dormant or until they die, and then letting the birds feed on the seeds, and then letting the stalks collect and the dust, the leaves, whatever else is blowing in the wind to help build up my soil.
Yeah, excellent. And let's see here. Serena was also asking that she has green sand, but doesn't know how much to use per square foot.
Yeah, so a lot, again, it gets down to if you need it at all. So it's really only if you have a potassium deficiency, and then it matters what that deficiency is. So there isn't a single answer for everybody, because it really does matter why you're using it. And so if you do a soil analysis and determine that your soil is deficient in potassium, then you can go to the manufacturer's website. I think they've got some tables that recommend how much of the green sand to add and how much potassium it actually incorporates into the soil. So it really depends on how much you want to increase the potassium levels, because like any nutrients, if you get too much, it can actually be harmful. It can actually block out some of the other nutrients that you want to have in your soil.
And would that be the same for our other question about bone meal?
Yeah, bone meal is similar. Bone meal is for phosphorus, and it's the same idea. You really don't want too much phosphorus in your soil. And now, and we could spend all day talking about pH as well, because when we talk about bone meal and phosphorus in particular, if your soil pH is too high, then the bone meal is wasted time. It's absolutely wasted effort. And so if you've got an alkaline soil, you can add all kinds of bone meal, and it's not really going to affect the nutrient value of your soil, because you need a pH that's closer to neutral before that bone meal, before the phosphorus really becomes available to plants. So there's lots of other factors involved. It's not a simple add 1 cup. And I see this, you see it. We see the videos that say add 3 tablespoons of bone meal at the bottom of the hole when you plant your bulbs.
Right.
Great. But you may not need 3 tablespoons of bone meal because your soil has enough phosphorus already. And if you don't have enough phosphorus, then 3 might not be enough. So be careful about some of those very broadly suggested ideas when you're talking about some of these fertilizers.
Yeah. And so what would be your recommendation on soil analysis? Would it be
send it to a lab. It's as simple as that, and you can do a home analysis. You can buy, a simple a simple
Kits, they
kit.
sell.
Yeah, you mix it with some water and you put it in those little vials and you see what color it turns. You can do that to see the pH. You can do that. And that is, I will say, if you want to check the nitrogen level of your soil, a home kit like that is often the best way. A lot of labs don't even test for nitrogen anymore because the temperature of the soil affects the nitrogen analysis, and how long the soil has been dry affects how much nitrogen shows up in the analysis. So really the only home testing that will show your nitrogen is the one that I might suggest. Otherwise, send it to a university laboratory, and most states have a laboratory that's associated with their Master Gardener program with the extension office, and they'll do the test. Some places, not me here in Colorado, but some Master Gardener offices, you could take in your soil sample and they'll do the test for free. I know of I know of some places that's part of the Master Gardener program, is they do free soil analysis through the university laboratory.
Yeah, really good idea too, just to get a good idea of what your soil is, and like you said, whether or not you're going to need these things that are recommended for your soils.
Yeah.
And let's see here. Darth S was saying, I'm thinking of doing something I've never done before, tarping over winter. What do you think about tarping up spaces and doing those
the
types
concept
of covering?
is, it's the same as, I will typically use a mulch, like a straw and leaf mulch. The idea is you just cover your beds. The sun, it can be extremely damaging to soil. And then the winds of winter will blow in weed seeds. And depending on what kind of pests you have in the garden, pests might dig in the bed. So covering the beds in winter is a good idea. It's just a decision of what you want to cover them with. And sure, tarps work. There's, and then you just pull the tarp up and you're ready to go in spring.
Yeah. We do that over at my friend's garden. We got a nice big tarps for the big space and just kind of tarp them over, keep them protected throughout the winter time, and everything's all ready to go. All right, let's see here. Move along. All right. Thanks everybody for the questions too. If you do got any questions for Gardener Scott, drop those into our chat there so that we can get those answered for you. Val was asking, any advice on ridding my raised beds of squash bugs? I'll remove all the straw and lightly till then add some first Saturday lime. Will it help?
Yeah, the lime really won't have much impact on the squash bugs, but that's one of the things to do throughout your garden, is just get rid of your garden waste, any plants, straw, places, and it's not just squash bugs. There's a lot of pests like that will overwinter. They'll either overwinter in the straw, or they'll lay eggs in the straw, or they'll use the straw for protection to lay eggs in the soil. And so one of the best things to do is just get back to the tarp idea. If you have some of those pests that will reside in the plant material, then don't use the plant material as a mulch. Do something like tarping, because that's how squash bugs and a lot of those pests are able to just continually be a problem, because they have a place to live, or a place to lay their eggs. A lot of the pests like that might be in larval form in the soil over winter, depending on how cold your winter gets. And then it warms up and they emerge and they eat all your spring plants. So disrupting their life cycle is important. And for squash bugs and similar insects, I also like to disrupt the soil in spring. And so, those cultivators, those little spinny wheel tools, hand tools, or tools on a pole, sometimes something like that, just running that over the surface of the soil to bring up any buried larvae or eggs is often enough to disrupt their life cycle as well.
Excellent. Yeah. Trying to stop that life cycle, I'm telling you again, in the spaces and where they just find places, and they, no matter what I'm trying to do to disrupt their life cycle, I'm always dealing with these squash bugs each and every year.
Yeah.
And luckily, though, too, I mean, I think there's a point where the plants can just start outpacing the damage, as long as you can try to keep on top of them a little bit. And sometimes that's just my only effort I can make when it comes down to it.
Well, and that's often enough. Your neighbor's yard might be where they're living, and then they fly in or crawl into your garden and want to set up home. So yeah, if you've got strong plants when they show up, they're probably not going to be a problem. And if you clean up so that they can't survive, then they're not going to be a problem. So sometimes it's just those little things that you do that can make a big difference.
Yeah. And let's see here. We had Bodega Wi-Fi jumping in the conversation. He's asking about companion planting, pigeon peas with Mexican sunflowers.
Sure. Sounds like a good idea. The is it Tithonia?
I think that's
the Mexican sunflowers. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it.
Tithonia, I think is right. Yeah.
But they're a little bit different. Sometimes when you grow like the full size mammoth sunflowers, many sunflowers tend to have an allelopathic effect. So plants growing near them are going to be killed. And so the big sunflowers, you have a field of those, and there aren't a lot of weeds in sunflower fields because of that. But the Mexican sunflower is more like just a regular low flower, orange color. Typically, I love them. It's a beautiful plant. And I don't see a problem growing, pigeon peas next to them. They will probably do well. I think they have similar sun and water needs. So give it a try.
Yeah. What do you think about companion planting in general?
So companion planting in general, my views of it are not the same as what a lot of people think companion planting is. There are books, and I've got the books, Carrots Love Tomatoes, all those books that are on companion planting. And when you compare the books, they disagree with each other, and they offer conflicting recommendations. And so companion planting really comes down to, well, he said and she said, and I tried, and this didn't work. And so the idea that you can plant a plant and it's going to deter a pest throughout your garden, I've seen no research, I've seen no studies that show that works. Now, marigolds are a classic example. I'll plant marigolds to keep the pests out of my garden. Well, there has been some research on marigolds, on nematodes in the soil. And yes, marigolds can deter some very specific nematodes near the roots of that plant. It doesn't have any effect on something else that's growing 5 feet away. And that's the misconception I think a lot of people have, is that you have a plant and it magically sends out this aura over a 5 or 6 foot area, and you're going to save your garden. That there's no evidence that any of that works. So the way I approach companion planting, and I've said it a few times already today, choose plants with the same water needs, and the same nutrient needs, and plant them together. And that's companion planting. You're doing it because you've got plants that can benefit from a particular bed. You're not doing it because of some assumed response that one plant is going to cause in another. The idea that basil can change the taste of tomatoes, there's no proof to that.
Right.
But basil and tomatoes grow great together. And I recommend growing them together because I love having basil with my tomatoes in a salad. So when I go out and harvest tomatoes, I'll harvest basil at the same time. It's not making the tomatoes taste better. It's making the salad taste better because now the salad's got basil in it at the same time. So I just caution people to be wary about the proclamation that a plant has a magical property on other plants, because it's just anecdotal. evidence. Someone says it works, but there's really no proof it works.
Yeah, but don't let that stop you planting your marigolds with your tomatoes just because it looks nice, though, right?
Exactly.
That's the reason why we're going to companion plant them versus them having some sort of effect, right?
And I've got chives planted near my rose bushes, and supposedly chives will deter some of those pests that are going to attack the rose bushes. Well, I don't believe that, but I like what chives do when they flower. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
So I have chives near my roses because I like the color of the chive blossom. If it happens to deter a pest, great. Do I expect it to deter a pest? Not at all.
Right, exactly. And about also too, again, maybe some other in the sense of companions, maybe other types of plants that are just maybe going to be more susceptible to something.
Yeah, now that's a little bit different.
Kind of push it away. Right.
Yeah, and so I guess you could categorize that as a companion plant. Most people think of companion planting as a positive influence.
Right.
But yeah, I use trap plants.
Trap plants, yes.
For that, and yes, they are planted near other plants, but the purpose of the trap plant is to attract the aphids or the pirate bug or whatever it happens to be, so that they're not attracted to the other plants. So definitely falls within the concept of companion planting. It just maybe for a slightly different purpose, but sure, go for it.
Yeah. One of the ones I've found, and I've got to do again and grow them again though too, but tobacco plants are a great trap plant. They attract almost everything, and you grow those things in your garden, and midway through the season, you just see all of these little bugs and aphids and different things just stuck to these plants because they're just so darn sticky. More than really just attractive. They're like kind of like those little yellow things that you put around, the little sticky things and stuff, sticky traps and all of that. So it's a natural one, which is actually a really fun, cool plant to grow.
I totally agree. And so there's a lot of plants like that we can grow for that purpose of pest control.
All right, excellent. So again, we're going into fall and all of that. You got any like recommended, or what do you think is a really great way or plants and crops to grow during a fall growing season leading into wintertime?
Yeah, so it depends on where you are and how much time you have. So, I've corresponded with a few people like in Florida, and I talked to my son in Louisiana and my brother in Arizona. And so places that are just now getting to that point where it's not too hot to garden, peppers and tomatoes and a lot of our summer crops can grow in those regions going into the winter months. For people who have that mild, that's good to hear, Val. Thanks. Sweetening. Well, I'll answer this real quickly about the cowboy candy. I do think the candied jalapenos do get hotter when you candy them. And so I don't know that extra sugar will necessarily take out that heat, but it might cut down on how much heat you feel.
Right.
Yeah. So it's worth a try. But yeah, if you've got a mild winter, you can definitely grow, the brassicas and the salad crops. The thing to realize for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere that are going into our winter right now is the decreased sunlight. So even though you might live in the Southern US and the temperature is good enough to grow, the plants are not going to grow as quickly, and they're not going to get as big as you might expect them to get because there's just not enough sunlight in the winter months. So just have patience. They'll survive. I've grown beets and radishes and spinach and lettuce in the greenhouse here in Colorado, and they basically shut down in December and January. There's just not enough sun to keep them growing. But as soon as the sun starts coming back and the days are lengthening in February, they shoot right back up as soon as they have enough sunlight. So that's the biggest issue as we go into the winter and choosing those plants. Is you can do any of the springtime plants probably with no issue if you live in a good area, but they're going to be really slow in their growth.
Yeah, still lots of stuff you can grow. A lot of great things that'll survive through even the winter time and all of that. For me, it's my favorite time of year for my greens. Whether it's just all the different lettuces and especially spinach. I mean, I love spinach, so I like to have a lot of different beds of varieties of spinach, and those are very cold tolerant, and at least for my area too, will grow right through the winter time. But like you said, though, as the light dims down and you get less light hours throughout the day, they're just going to slow their growth just a bit. Right on. Excellent. And let's see here. There was Texas Organic TV was asking about peanuts, how to harvest peanuts. He said you had a squirrel plant them.
That's good. So harvesting peanuts is a lot like harvesting potatoes.
Yeah.
You're going to want to dig them up because the peanuts are roots, basically. They're in the ground. It's not something that the flower pod develops and you harvest like you would a pea. It's a peanut, but it's a lot more like a potato than it is like a pea. And so a garden fork is what I usually recommend for digging up those kind of plants. And you could use a shovel or a spade, but the idea is just wring the plant, loosen the soil, and then just kind of pull it out of the ground so that you don't disturb the peanuts any more than you need to.
Yeah, peanuts I want to grow those again too. I grew those many years ago, and they're just such a fascinating plant. Another one of these ones that are just kind of cool to grow, just to kind of watch and see how different types of plants grow. And these ones are just kind of different than anything, because they'll grow off of stems that they shoot down into the soil from their branches up above.
Yeah, that's actually one of the ways to propagate them is to just to bend the branches down and have as many peanuts as you can get.
Yeah, right on. That's really great. So again, too, back to kind of fall gardening and all of that too. It is that time of year I'm getting myself prepared and getting everything going, because one of my favorite things to grow, and it has a really long growing season, and that's why we get them started all the way in the fall, is our garlic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about time to start thinking about garlic.
Yeah, and I'm going on a trip next week, so I'll be gone. And when I come back, it should be perfect time for me to put the garlic in. So generally, the end of October, beginning of November is what I'm finding is a good time for me to get my garlic in. It used to be a little bit earlier, but like this year, the season is just staying warm for so long. If you put your garlic in too soon, it's going to sprout, and you really don't want your garlic to sprout. So you're aiming for 4 to 6 weeks before the ground freezes, and typically after your first frost to put your garlic in. And so you're exactly right. For many of us, that's now or close to now.
Yeah. Do you have a preference between a soft neck garlic or a hard neck?
So music is my favorite. I just really like the music, and most of the garlics I like are hard neck garlics. Siberian is a purple garlic that I like to grow, and I'm thinking about trying some new ones this year. But the purple garlics and the music are the ones that I try to grow every year.
Yeah, they're really great. But if you're looking for just to get started and an inexpensive way to grow garlic, and what you'll find most of the time and I always recommend go to the organic section of your supermarket, and that's where you'll find mostly soft neck varieties of garlic there.
Yeah, the difference is that depending on how harsh your winter is. So those of us who have really harsh winters, hard neck garlic tends to do better when it's really cold. And the soft neck varieties tend to do better in areas with mild winters. So most of the supermarket garlic that we buy is grown in California. And that's because California has a mild winter. It used to be Gilroy. I've read that there's a new area that's starting to pop up as being a garlic capital. But if you have mild winters, then yeah, absolutely, a soft neck garlic should do well. And that's the cheapest way to do it. If you look at how much you have to pay to buy a bulb of garlic for planting, if you're lucky, one bulb is only $5. I've seen some sites where it's $10 per bulb.
Wow.
And the bulb might only have 10 or 12 cloves on it. So, I mean, that's just craziness to me. But you can go to the store and get organic garlic for like 49 cents or 75 cents a bulb. I'm not even sure what it is now. And so, yeah, basically the same plants. You just don't necessarily know. If you buy it, you know exactly which variety it is. Whereas if you do it from the store, you don't necessarily know the specific cultivar, but you know what it tastes like. And you can grow it in your garden without any issues.
Yeah. And with garlic though too, as we're getting ready to plant those out, one of the things I'll say about that too though is that even though they're expensive, which I agree with you, is just, it's amazing sometimes I see the price of some of these things at all, but you grow that one season, and then you got however many cloves, now you got full bulbs for the next season, you save those. And I got just one bulb of garlic from a friend of mine a few years ago that ended up turning into like 300 different bulbs of garlic over. It takes a couple of seasons.
Oh yeah,
but it's amazing. They do really multiply if you're growing them season after season. So in some ways, if you really want a great variety, it can be worth it if you're taking that long look and approach towards growing your garlic.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think music tends to have 10 to 12 cloves. And so, you buy one music bulb, and next year you'll have 10 bulbs.
10 bulbs, yeah.
And then you take those 10 bulbs, and the next year you'll have 100 bulbs. So in 2 years, a single bulb can give you 100 if you are lucky enough for all of them to survive.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. But also too, because we were touching kind of on amending or revitalizing soil or all that sort of stuff. Is there any sort of amendment or anything you would do to a specific bed or raised bed that you're going to be growing garlic in?
Yeah, so garlic, because it's the root, the bulb grows underground. I mean, a portion of it may be above the ground towards harvest time, but you want your soil to be loose. You want a well-draining soil. You don't want it compacted. You don't want it dense. I've had a lot of people over the years ask me about why their garlic is so small. And when you ask the right questions, you find out that they didn't loosen up the bed. They didn't add compost or peat moss or perlite or whatever you use to improve drainage in your soil. They didn't add any of that. They just planted it in the same bed they've been growing in for years, and it's compacted, it's dense, and the bulb just can't push against that dense soil, and so it's going to stay small. If you have a nice, loose, enriched soil, you're more likely to get those bigger bulbs.
Yeah, and what about spacing?
And spacing, I'm not too concerned about spacing. The roots, when you pull out the garlic, and you'll see the roots aren't that big, and so you can plant them as close as you expect the bulb to be at harvest time. And so the bulbs, the bigger bulbs, might be 4 or 5 inches in diameter. Well, that means you can plant 4 to 5 inches apart, and they're not going to interfere with each other. There's a lot of plants you've got to be concerned about the roots interfering with each other and then stealing nutrients from each other. That's really not the case with garlic. So plant them as close as the bulb will be. I grew a shashili garlic a couple years ago, and it's a very small bulb. And delicious garlic, did great in my garden, but the bulb was only like 2 inches, if that. when it was mature. And so something like that, you could pack them into a bed and grow a lot more garlic. You don't have to follow the, plant 6 inches apart. Well, plant as close as you want them to be so that the bulbs aren't running into each other when they reach maturity.
Yeah. See, Rob mentions here that he plants 4 cloves in a 10-liter bucket.
Sure.
So how about, have you ever grown garlic in containers?
Yeah, I've tried growing garlic in containers. The biggest issue I have is just my winters. So if you are zone 6 or below, it's hard growing garlic in containers. The winter just gets too cold. Zone 7 and above, you're more likely to be able to do that. So if you're in a cold region like mine and you attempt to grow in a container, don't expect any of them to survive. They're just going to freeze solid, and you really need more of a stabilized, moderate temperature. My raised beds do great because it's a little more moderated than a container will be. And so if you're attempting to grow in a cold zone, just bring them inside to like a garage or a shed where it's not as cold. You still need to make sure that the soil doesn't dry out completely. That's the other issue, is that not only the cold can harm those cloves, but if they dry out, if they desiccate, it's going to kill them. So you do need to occasionally water in winter if you're growing in containers.
Yeah, because again, too, if they were in the regular soil or the ground, a winter time is going to be a wet time of year, depending on freezing and all of that. So that's what they're accustomed to being in throughout that time, and that's not a good thing. It's in any point in time with your containers is allowing any sort of plants to be drying out.
Yep.
How about elephant garlic? You ever grow elephant garlic?
So I have, yeah. Elephant garlic is not technically a garlic; it's a leek, and does great. There's only a few. The big garlic bulb might only have like 4 cloves. I mean, there aren't a lot of cloves in it, and so that is one that takes longer to grow if you want a big bed filled with elephant garlic. It's a more mild garlic flavor. The growing environment is pretty much the same as garlic, which is why you plant them at the same time and let them grow.
Yeah, and like you said, they're a type of leek more so than a garlic. And again, for me too, as I've grown before, if you like growing leeks, again, the winter time's that's another great fall into winter type of crop as well too.
Yeah, and shallots, and shallots are if your winter isn't too harsh, shallots are typically started in fall as well. And then different onions as well. So all those allium plants typically fall is a time of year to start thinking about putting them in the ground.
Absolutely. Okay, let's see. Serena asked, what pH do carrots and beets need?
Just a neutral-ish, like most vegetable plants. If it's near 7 pH, they're going to do fine. If you get too much below 6.5, you might have issues, but carrots and beets are very forgiving, and they can take a lot of different soils.
Yeah, excellent. Right on. And I was also going to ask too, as you kind of mentioned about bringing things in and all of that too, is what do you think? I've got this idea. I've got this just kind of one of these small, inexpensive kind of makeshift greenhouse kind of things and all of that. So my idea this year is because when I went down to the fig festival down in Northern California, the fig hunter gave me a Eureka lemon. So I'm going to get back into growing citrus and trying to do citrus. And one of the things I've been having a hard time with in past seasons and trying to grow citrus is keeping them alive during the winter time. So my idea now is to take this little greenhouse thing that should fit just inside of my carport. So I've got carport, greenhouse. Do you think that my citrus plants in these containers should do well inside of that?
Possibly. Are you zone 7 where you're at?
I'm a little higher, 8.
You're 8. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know specifically that variety, but zone 9 and 10 is where most citrus does best.
Yeah.
And so by putting a greenhouse under your carport, you are gaining at least one zone.
Yeah.
And so I would think that it's a worthwhile experiment.
Right, right. And then I remember we talked before though too, is you utilize inside your greenhouse like a tub for like water to heat up water, and then that kind of helps keep the
Yeah.
thing. So maybe like a little bucket of water or something inside
Well,
there with a fish
no, it's actually a
thermometer
bit
in
more
it.
than that. So it depends on what you want to do with the water. So,
Yeah.
you
I'm
know,
just thinking it's not very big. So
well,
I'm just
and
kind of
so
right.
you
Yeah.
basically take the square footage of that greenhouse,
Mm-hmm.
and then for you multiply by 2,
Okay.
3 on the safe side. And so if it's like a 4x4, is that what you think the size is roughly?
Yeah, I would say that's about right.
Okay, so about 16 square feet. And so to make any difference, you need 32 or 35 gallons of water.
Okay.
And a bucket is not going to give you that much. And the idea is just that water absorbs heat during the day and then releases that heat at night, and it takes that much water to affect that much space.
Okay. Okay. So maybe just kind of a nice medium-sized like garbage bin or something like that,
Well,
right?
and so if you got the tree in a round pot,
Yeah.
yeah, so I would, put the pot in the middle of the greenhouse, and then put, 10-gallon buckets on each corner.
Okay. There you
And
go.
they don't need to be exposed. Just take a 10-gallon bucket. If you really want to take the extra step, paint the bucket black, fill it with water, and now you've got 40 gallons of water surrounding that tree, and it's going to really help on those cold nights.
Right on. Well, thanks for the compliment, Drew. Appreciate that. Right on. Yeah, absolutely. Always a great time getting to hang out with you. I've been looking forward to getting this conversation in, of course, because we missed you this last month and everything. So just a really wonderful conversation again. Always so many just great things to talk about, no matter what time of year it is, right? So always great. And again, also thank you to everybody else who's out there in the audience right now with all your great questions today. Just a really awesome conversation, Scott.
Oh yeah, it's always a good time.
Real quick too, I'll mention and maybe a real quick comment on your last video. I thought was really interesting, and gardening and AI. Give us a little tease on that video.
Yeah, so I've noticed it. I've had a lot of my YouTuber friends that we've had conversations about the gardening channels that are popping up now, that there's not a real person in any of the footage.
Right.
The voice kind of sounds real, but if you're not sure that it's a real person, and many of those are generated by generative artificial intelligence. And the concern, there's a couple concerns, but one is that the information is inaccurate, or at least incomplete, to be nice about it, and in some cases just flat out wrong. But these channels, because they're being produced by artificial intelligence, are flashy, they're pretty, they sound great, and there are a lot of people that are watching these channels now, not knowing that the information might not be the best information. And so what's happening, and what's driving a lot of these conversations, is we're seeing our viewership fall, because as these other channels are growing, we're just regular people doing YouTube videos, and we might not have that flash factor. And I'm not going to change how I'm doing my videos,
I know.
but it's having an impact. So that's what the video talks about, is the impact that artificial intelligence is having on our gardening, without us necessarily even aware that it's happening, because it's so insidious.
Yeah, and something that we've talked about before too is, just the plethora of gardening misinformation that there is online. And if you think about it, what AI is really doing is it's reading everything
Yeah.
that it sees online. And if there's so much misinformation out there, then that stuff gets in there because
Yeah.
it's a common thing that the AI is seeing. So it's going to relay that as information that is, real when it's
Yep.
not, right?
And and it's funny because the AI knows that. And I had a
Yeah.
comment on that video this morning from one of my viewers, and I forget the term, but there's actually a term. The AI knows that if it uses AI produced information, that it dilutes the information. It makes it less likely to be accurate. But there's really
Mhm.
nothing it can do about it. It basically
Yeah.
just feeds on itself. And so the AI gets information from the AI, which produces more AI information for other AI to then use. And yeah, and uh, and the if you want to see it, it's a comment on that video about artificial intelligence. Um, but you can ask your AI a question about that happening, and
Yeah.
it's aware of it. It knows that that is something it wants to avoid, but it can't avoid it. It's just mining the information that it has.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And again, too, with so much misinformation out there, it's easy for it. And then also to AI, it knows it's AI, so in a sense, they know how to promote and get those things out there as well, too. On top of all of that, the interest that people have in, like you're saying, flashy stuff. So again, for a lot of us out there creating content, it's going to be tough competition when dealing with all that stuff. But I like what you said,
Absolutely.
though, that no, let's not change anything. Let's be who we are and keep putting out all the great good information out there, and hopefully that'll attract
Yeah.
people as well too. But real quick here before we get going, I just want to say again, thank you, Scott, for being here. Go and check out Gardener Scott, because if you didn't get your questions answered today, or you're thinking of something after the show and you're like, oh, I wish that I could have asked Gardener Scott that, well, you're in luck, because Gardener Scott will be right back on the air tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, and everywhere in between or outside of that for you. Just check your time zones for all of that, and you can go and get your gardening questions answered over at the Gardener Scott channel, which we've got a link down below for. And as well too, I also want to keep mentioning this too, because I don't want to forget about it. But Gardener Scott wrote a really, really great book that we featured on our gardening book club, Gardener Scott's Guide to Raised Bed Gardening. If you haven't had a chance to get that book, get it into your gardening collection. As far as books are concerned, books are really, really important, especially with all that AI and everything out there as well too. Get some really great information from some books. And again, I got a link down below so you can get yourself a copy of Gardener Scott's book as well too. So again, Scott, just really wonderful to have you back on the show again. I look forward to our next conversation as well. Next month. Let's do it. Let's keep it rolling, right?
Yeah.
We'll be rolling right into next year already again. Can you believe that? Unbelievable.
Well, thanks, Enoch. Always good to be here.
Absolutely. Always great to see you. And again, everybody else, thank you so much for jumping in with all of your great questions today. And like I said, catch Gardener Scott tomorrow if you didn't get your questions answered. All right.
See you then.
Hey, gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. All right. Excellent. Man, wow, what a great conversation. Man, what a great way to finish up our weekend here on the Urban Gardener channel, the Let's Get Growing show. And again, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I saw our good friend Christopher Bransdahl in there. Thank you. Thank you, Janet, for being here. Thank you, everyone. Just lots and lots of great stuff going on, as Tody says, too, for sure. So again, thank you so much. And let's see. Oh, wait. I see Bowtie is saying, Scott is not AI, he's RI. That's real intelligence. I love it. I love it. That's just awesome. Yeah, definitely. We're so fortunate to be able to have Gardener Scott with us here every second Sunday of the month to be able to answer all of your gardening questions. You guys brought some really, really great questions for us here today. So thank you all so much too, as well too. So it's just, again, such a great show today. So thank you so much. And definitely be sure to come back and join with us this next weekend. Little adjustment to what we were planning to do. We had some guests scheduled for next Saturday, but the other day I just had something come up. I had to make sure we make some rescheduling. So we'll get them rescheduled for down the road. But I do have about an hour. So I'm going to come and join on normal time, 11 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, and we will hang out for about an hour this next Saturday. So definitely come and join with us this next Saturday, and we'll just have kind of a little chat. I think what we're going to do is we'll have our good friend Jay Dixon, our facilitator, in the chat there, join with us for a little discussion. We'll bring on, I think, David from Bowtie Life on the Garden. We'll just kind of have a little discussion about our upcoming Halloween special live stream hangout. This is going to be our 5th annual special Halloween hangout live stream, where we feature the original 1960 classic Little Shop of Horrors. Such a fun classic movie, public domain movie too. So we're able to watch it here. It's just it just makes for a fun way to hang out while we're all handing out treats for all the kids in the neighborhood and all of that. And hopefully, in fact, I'm trying to work on it right now. We might have a special appearance by my granddaughter, maybe this for this Halloween hangout as well too. So let's look forward to all of that. So next Saturday, what we'll do is we'll kind of get together with Jay and David, and we'll just kind of talk about some ideas of what we can do to put together. What I want to do this year is put together a Halloween costume contest, because we did what ended up becoming our community show on our last Halloween hangout last year. As I invited you folks to come and join with me and to be on the show with me for the last Halloween hangout. So that was really fun. And because it was so much fun, that's what we ended up doing throughout this year. We'll have another community show coming up here in another few weeks as well too. But definitely come and join with us and wear a costume, put your costumes on and all of that. And next Saturday, we'll kind of figure out what we'll do, how we'll set up that costume contest for our Halloween hangout. And I also like to mention too, that it's a nice long hangout for the evening after we get done with our costume contest and hangout after our viewing of the Little Shop of Horrors. We'll also play a theatrical version. It's one of my favorite shows, one of my favorite plays. Little Shop of Horrors has just been something since I was a little kid. It was just really loved. So we'll watch a theatrical version of that to finish out the night as well too. So it'll be all Little Shop of Horrors, Halloween, treat giving, and some costume contests and all of that sort of stuff to come in up here at the end of the month for Halloween. And we'll hang out this next Saturday for about an hour or so to figure out and just kind of talk about what we're going to be doing for that Halloween hangout, and maybe anything else. So you guys got some questions, you got anything you want to talk about as well too, come and join with us and come and hang out, and we'll talk about that too as well. Next Sunday is the 3rd Sunday of the month. So that means that it's time for our monthly gardening book club. So yeah, we got a great book club for you this month. We are featuring the Biochar Handbook by Kelpie Wilson. So Kelpie Wilson will join with us next Sunday to talk all about biochar and this just really great book of hers. And again, for me, I haven't really had much of an opportunity or chance to be able to utilize biochar in my garden and all of that. So I'm learning right now about how to, set up maybe some of my own in, do my own burning and make my own biochar right here in our garden that we can use for this next growing season. So if you're interested at all in biochar, want to learn more about biochar, I know Hot Potato was asking a little bit earlier in the chat as well too. So this would be a great time to come and join with us and learn about biochar. And again, bring some questions too. We love it when you're bringing questions. Really great of you all today to bring some really awesome questions, but bring your biochar questions next Sunday for our monthly gardening book club with Kelpie Wilson and the Biochar Handbook. So yeah, we got some great shows still ahead for you all coming up here, and definitely look forward to seeing all of you here on the show. So definitely come and join with us next weekend. And if you can here before we head out today, definitely let's click that like button. If you haven't had a chance to click that like button yet, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the bell notification to be notified of all of our upcoming live streams, and definitely share with all your friends. We got just amazing, fun conversations, just absolutely wonderful guests here each and every Saturday and Sunday. So definitely share with all of your garden friends and let them know about our show. And like I said too earlier, follow all of our links down below. Go check out the Gardener Scott channel. Go and check him out tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. And go and get some more garden information from Gardener Scott, and also go get a copy of his Gardener Scott's Guide to Raised Bed Gardening. We got links of that down below in the description, as well as other links to all of our other social media as well here for the Urban Gardener. And it's just, again, too, man, what a great day. I just love hanging out with you all each and every weekend, and then all of these just great, wonderful gardeners that we get to meet and have conversations with each and every weekend as well too. And I look forward to this next weekend as well. So I'll see all of you then.
Power out.